The Soviet Socialist Republics of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics were the first level subdivisions of the great extinct superpower. We all know the 15 SSRs that became independent in 1991, giving rise to countries like Russia, Ukraine, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Moldova, or Estonia. That is to say, the configuration of a large part of Eurasia is due to the decisions made by the top leaders of the Kremlin during the 20th century. And what if I told you that these 15 republics were not the only ones, and that throughout the existence of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, there were some others that were dissolved? If they had survived today, we would have new countries, some of them with millennia-old histories, and the configuration of the map of Eurasia would be different. Are you interested in knowing which ones they are? Go ahead. So, stay until the end of the video. The People's Soviet Republic of Bukhara was located in the territory of Uzbekistan and is the legitimate successor of the Emirate of Bukhara, which in turn was a protectorate that was never formally integrated into the Russian Empire. Its capital, the namesake Bukhara, was taken by the Red Army during the Russian Civil War, who founded the Bukhara Soviet Socialist Republic. Before the Emirate, that is, before Russian influence, there was the Khanate of Bukhara, founded in the early 16th century. This country was ruled by a Persian elite over Uzbek majority, that is, a state that had its own identity after centuries of existence. However, after 4 years of the Red Army's takeover, the Soviet authorities decided to merge it with the Khorezm Soviet Socialist Republic to form the current Uzbek Soviet Socialist Republic. The reason? Pure pragmatism. To simplify state administration from the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, and why not mix populations of different ethnicities to prevent possible cohesive uprisings? Divide and conquer. Nowadays, Bukhara is the 5th most populated city in Uzbekistan, and the legacy of the vanished millennial emirate can be seen in its impressive monuments. The Khorezm Soviet Socialist Republic shares many parallels with the Bukhara Soviet Socialist Republic. It was also an independent state known as the Khanate of Khiva, with Uzbek and Persian roots, which broke away in the 16th century from the Timurid Empire of Tamerlane. Yes, this guy who proclaimed himself a descendant of Genghis Khan. In turn, Khiva was the heir of Khorezm, which is where the Soviets got the name from. A region where Al-Khwarizmi, the famous mathematician whose name gave rise to algebra, comes from. Going back to Khiva, it also became a protectorate of the Russian Empire. In 1920, the Red Army invaded it, and it was born, just like that. The Khorezm Soviet Socialist Republic 4 years later was dissolved and divided between the Uzbek Soviet Socialist Republic and Turkmen Soviet Socialist Republic once again under the motto of divide and conquer. Today, the city of Khiva is located in Uzbekistan near the border with Turkmenistan. The legacy of another ancient state can also be seen in its monuments. The Abkhaz Soviet Socialist Republic is a true limbo because it exists, but it doesn't exist. And no, I'm not drunk. Nowadays, there is the Republic of Abkhazia, a state that declared its independence from Georgia. Georgia considers it a province, but it is recognized by 5 countries, including Russia. It turns out that during the medieval era, there was the Kingdom of Abkhazia, based on the Abkhazian ethnic group whose language belongs to the Caucasian language family. Although it was later integrated into the Kingdom of Georgia, to this day, the Abkhazians have created a different identity based on their history and language. For this reason, although Georgia declared its independence from Russia in 1918, taking advantage of the Russian Civil War after the Bolshevik invasion, the Abkhazian Soviet Socialist Republic was founded separate from Georgia and based on that ancient medieval state. However, this Soviet Socialist Republic was dissolved in 1931, becoming part of the Georgian Soviet Socialist Republic. The reason, once again, was the search for pragmatism in state administration, the control of peripheral nationalisms, and in this case, one more factor. Do you know where Mustache Stalin was born? No more and no less than in Georgia. So there was a personal bias that led him to promote policies of Georgianization of Abkhazia. You know, his little nationalist heart came out. The Finns shine alongside the Estonians and Hungarians for being peoples foreign to Europe, since they have a Finno-Ugric origin, probably coming from the Ural Mountains. To these three non-European European peoples, we add the Karelians, originally from the region of the same name, who are closely related to the Finns, and who were part of the country until 1940. The problem? The Soviets needed to move the Finnish border away from Leningrad, which was only 32 kilometers from the border. They feared an invasion from Adolf Hitler's Germany through Finland, so they decided to conquer it. The excuse was an alleged Finnish attack on a Russian border village, for which there was never any evidence. Then the Winter War broke out, remembered as a setback for the Soviets because they were unable to advance, despite having tremendous military superiority over Finland. Although they couldn't conquer the entire country, they did annex Finnish territories, including the region of Karelia, which was turned into the Karelo-Finnish Soviet Socialist Republic. The Soviets' goal in creating it was to justify the future Sovietization of Finland, which never happened. Karelia was actually sparsely populated, and to this day there are only about 45,000 ethnic Karelians. For this reason, the Karelia Soviet Socialist Republic was dissolved in 1956 and placed under the jurisdiction of the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist of Russia. Today, it is established as the Republic of Karelia, a constituent of the Russian Federation. The terrible war between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which, by the way, still hasn't completely ended, could have been avoided if the Transcaucasian Soviet Socialist Republic had survived. It turns out that the three countries of the South Caucasus unified during the Russian Civil War in a failed attempt. Unity is strength because it's really complicated to join forces with your enemy, isn't it? In 1918, the Federal Republic of Transcaucasia was formed among what are now Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia, with its capital in Tbilisi, in order to defend themselves from both the Bolsheviks and the Ottomans. However, internal tensions among these three diverse groups escalated, and the Transcaucasian Soviet Socialist Republic dissolved just a few months after its formation. The Red Army invades the three countries and regroups them into the Transcaucasian Soviet Federative Republic with a status similar to that of Russia. That is, a federal Soviet Socialist Republic made up of other entities. The Transcaucasian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic existed until 1936, when it was dissolved in favor of the Armenian Soviet Socialist Republic, Azerbaijani Soviet Socialist Republic, and Georgian Soviet Socialist Republic. The reason was Moscow's need to directly administer each republic in the face of growing nationalist complexity in the Caucasus. The consequences of having played with their borders. A real mess in which, to this day, there are terrible unresolved conflicts. The South Caucasus. The powder keg, which remains a powder keg. What do you think? The Soviet scenario decisively shaped the map of Eurasia as we know it today, more than by a series of natural events. The borders of the post-Soviet space were drawn according to the strategic and pragmatic convenience of Moscow, which implies, in some cases, the survival or disappearance of ancient states that today are nothing more than history. Which, in plain terms, means, well, the Soviets did whatever they wanted. How do you think history would be if these 5 SSRs had survived? Thank you.